This class is brought to you by the LA Care and Blue Shield Promise Community Resource Centers. The centers are a place to help you be active, healthy, and informed. We hope you enjoy this virtual class.
Hi, this class is going to be about parboiled rice. And oftentimes we think about rice as being something that has a lot of starch in it. We can't eat it because it's going to make us gain weight. But what I want to show you is parboiled rice is a little bit different because of how it's processed. So in this episode, what you're going to learn is what parboiled rice is, how it's processed, and what are some of the health benefits that you can get from it. I hope you'll enjoy this. See, look at how that looks. Look at how this rice looks and just falling through your hands. And that's one of the things about parboiled rice is that it actually separates. The processing that it goes through when you cook it, it's going to be easier to separate as well, not just here when it's in the raw, but after it's cooked. So it'll be interesting for you to see this. Right now you see that the rice is being harvested. Once it's harvested, there are 3 steps that it goes through in order to make it a parboiled rice, which is a little bit different than the other rices. What they do is they take it, they let it dry a little, then they soak it, they steam it, and then it's dried out. But because they do that particular process, it reduces the starch. It makes it easier for you to digest it in your stomach, so it makes a good thing for your gut flora. It increases the calcium because by this process, the nutrients and minerals are kind of pushed into the rice itself or the rice kernel, which now increases antioxidants and all kind of other beneficial things. You end up having it becomes like a prebiotic for you because of the nutrients and minerals that it has. And it's also something that's good for diabetics because it's reduced in the starches and it doesn't stick together because of that process. And then when you rinse it and you do all the things that you'll see me doing in this, you're taking additional starches out of it. So this particular rice is indeed one that would be good for diabetics as well. And you'll see the process as it goes through the video here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I get started is I'm going to make sure all my surfaces are clean. So I'm going to sterilize my sinks and all my surfaces and wash those all down. Next, I'm going to wash my hands because I've already sterilized everything else, so now it's time for me to sterilize and wash my hands. So, and the way you do that is I like to get mine up my arm as well, so that if there's any dirt or anything that may fall off, it won't go into the food. You're going to make sure you get your thumbs. You're going to get your nails. I happen to have a little brush that I can use to make sure that under my nails get done, as well as the center part of my hand. You can use, if you don't have like a nail brush, you can use something like a vegetable brush, but just make sure you just use it just for doing your hand and not your hands and your vegetables. So I like to, the palm of my hand, my wrist, and the best thing to do is not to wear any jewelry when you're cooking in the kitchen, or any bracelets or anything, because food can get trapped underneath it and then fall into the food and cross-contaminate as well. So you want to make sure you get all areas of your hand, your thumbs, between your fingers, so you want to make sure you get all of that. And then I rinse my little brush out, and then I set it where it can dry. But another thing I like to do is take a little bit more soap, and where I would have touched my sprayer to get my soap, I like to also clean the soap dispenser, because when you first touched it, your hands were dirty, and if you don't wash it off, then it's not going to do you any good. So you rinse your hands off, make sure you get up your arms, the center of your fingers here, and all of your nails, your wrist. You're going to rinse that off, and I use pretty hot water myself. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use a paper towel, or what they call a single serve, and not a cloth or anything like that, because there could be something else on that and that would cross-contaminate. So this is what you call a single serve. So you're just going to use a single serve paper towel to dry your hands off. Okay, I'm going to make some rice, and the rice is approximately 1 2/3 cup of parboiled rice, and I'm going to end up doing it just like I do my beans, and that is what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cover it with water, rinse it, cover it with water, and let it sit before I start cooking. Here I'm going to show you why you would rinse your rice, because if you look at it and I start pouring it, you're going to see all the stuff that's coming off of it. That's not the rice, that's the starches and stuff. That also would help you to gain weight if you want to gain weight. And so you see that it's not clear. So I'm going to end up doing this until it ends up rinsing clear. And when it rinses clear, then I will cover it with water and let it sit. And that way it's going to absorb water, and it reduces the cooking time so that when you are cooking something else, this can be cooking. But you can see it's starting to get a little bit clearer, but it's going to take me a little bit longer to get it to an actual clear state. So I'll keep rinsing. Okay, now I'm going to show you the rice, how it's now, I've rinsed it enough, and you see where it's rinsing clear now. The water that's coming out is clear. It's completely clear. So that means I've gotten the starches off the rice. You may see a little bit, a tiny little bit, but I'll get that off in the next go round. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and pour this water off. Then I'm going to turn my water where it's going to be hot. So I'll get some hot water and I'm going to cover it with hot water. But what I'm going to show you is that if you look at the rice now, it's at 2 cups now. So it's absorbed some of the water, and that's what we want it to do, because that'll slow down or actually speed up the cooking time so that it won't take as long to finish cooking and get a nice fluffy rice. And you can do this and then just set it aside so that what you'll do is it'll be absorbing the water while it's just sitting there, and you can go and cook something else at the same time. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cover it with hot water. You can see the water is hot. Okay, for my rice, it started out about 1 2/3 cups of dried rice. I've soaked it, I've rinsed it and everything, and now if you look at it, it's just about up to almost 4 cups just by soaking it in water, and I soaked it for about 1.5 hours. But what I want to do is I want to get some flavor in my rice. So I'm going to take some of the juices that are in my greens, and I'm going to start putting that on it for it to absorb the nutrients and everything that's from the greens that I was cooking. And then I'll cover them again and let it soak a little bit longer before I decide to go ahead and cook the rice. Okay, so now you can see my rice is completely covered. And what I'm doing is I'm infusing the rice with flavor before I go ahead and start the cooking, so it'll have flavor going throughout it before it begins to cook, so that you have a more robust flavor. And when you add it to other foods that you have already cooked and you're eating it, everything will have its own flavor, but then combined it'll be even that much more appealing to the palate. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what the rice looks like after I put the broth on it, which was from the vegetables, and I just let it soak up. So you can see it ended up soaking up all of the juices, and you can see how the rice kernels themselves have swollen. So you can see because they're swollen, it's going to take less time for them to actually cook. And while they've been soaking in this, I've been making other things. I now put the rice in the rice pot for the rice cooker, and I added a little bit of Italian seasoning to it and a little bit of salt just to make sure that it's pretty much well seasoned. And I just add maybe 2 ladles, which would be about maybe 1 cup of broth to make sure there was enough to cover it. So now I'll go ahead and cook it. Okay, what I did is I put a paper towel underneath the lid in order to absorb any additional moisture that might have been there, and then I've just left it there for about maybe 20 minutes. And so now I can take and open the lid, and what happened is this paper towel is damp, so it absorbed a lot of the moisture. And now when you look at the rice, you're going to see how fluffy that is. That's nice and fluffy. And you can see the granules in it. They're nice and swollen, and you can see where it's absorbed all of the broth that I had put in. So it's already a seasoned rice now. And here's the finished product of the rice. This was simply delicious, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And give it a try. Parboiled rice is something that's very nutritious. It's good for people with diabetes, as well as if you just want a rice where you can get a lot of nutrients and minerals and antioxidants, something that's good for your gut flora and all of those things. And thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to seeing you virtually again next week and at one of our resource centers as soon as we can. Until then, stay active, healthy, and informed. And I have a few disclaimers for you, and that is, all information, content, and material of this video is for informational purposes only and are not intended to serve as a substitute for consultation, diagnosis, and/or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider. The information contained on this video is compiled from a variety of sources and are not considered complete. Information is subject to change without notice. If you have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately.